pool I don't believe is going to be overly long. So I don't have any objection taking him out of order, allowing Mr. Rocker to call him before Sergeant Lindstrom testifies.
Thank you. Is Mr. Kula here?
He is in the hallway, Your Honor, right now.
Can you get the witness?
Oh, I'm ready. I was going to say, I was going to call my witness, Your Honor.
That's fine.
People will call John Fletcher.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Please raise your right hand and solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give this court is the whole truth?
Yes.
All right, thank you, sir. If I could just have you pull that front gate forward. Have a seat. Is that someone's microphone? Both of them. All right. As long as it's a microphone, I'm allowed to be there. If it's something other than a microphone, I don't want it there. Is it a microphone?
Yep, that's the TV one, and
Okay.
that's the radio.
All right, very good. Thank you. You may proceed when you're ready, Mr. President.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, would you please spell your name and spell your last name for the, I'm sorry, spell your last name for the record.
John Fletcher, Fletcher.
Where do you work, sir?
I work at National Restoration.
What does National Restoration do?
We do masonry restoration and specialize in historic preservation.
How long have you been doing that?
My whole life, 40 years since I was 16. Yeah.
Were you working there on August 28th of 2015?
Yes.
Did you have a job going that day?
Yes.
What job were you working on?
I'm the president of National Restoration, and no job is complete till I personally see it. So I was heading to the Sheboygan Lighthouse, the rear range lighthouse, to inspect the job. It was the final day for our crew.
You don't live up in Sheboygan.
No,
Do you live around here?
I do.
What city?
Kego Harbor.
So you were heading up to Sheboygan that morning?
Yes,
What time did you leave your house?
around 6 a.m.
And how did you proceed towards Sheboygan? What route did you take? sir?
I typically always come up 59 to Frumbees to Dixie Highway. You come up and then hop on the 75 North ramp off of Dixie.
And did you do that morning?
Yes, I did.
Do you know approximately what time you reached the intersection of Dixie Highway and I-75?
Approximately 6:30. It normally takes between 20 and 30 minutes to get there.
Anywhere between 6:20 and 6:30 then?
Yes.
What was the lighting conditions at that time?
Oh, it was still dark out.
The entrance on I-75, where was that entrance ramp off of Dixie Highway?
It goes off of the right, out of the right lane, and then, I don't know if you're not familiar with it, it comes off to the right. You slow down to probably 30, 35, and then it's a 90-degree hard turn onto 75 off to the left.
As you entered the freeway, or as you got into the onto the entrance ramp, did you notice anything at that intersection?
No.
As you got onto the freeway, did anything draw your attention?
Yes.
What was that, sir?
I immediately, probably a half a mile out in front of me, saw just a blaze of sparks. It just immediately drew my attention to it, and it was going off towards the right lane.
Now, you kind of moved your arm there. When you first saw this mass of sparks, could you tell us approximately where it was on the freeway?
Probably in the middle lane moving to the right.
It was moving towards the right, though?
Yes.
When you saw that, what did you think?
I thought...
Section that relevance.
Relevance?
I just was going to ask him what his, well, let me ask you, did you have any concerns at that point?
I did. I thought somebody was driving on a rim.
And why would that concern you?
Dangerous condition. I'm behind them on the expressway.
What did you do when you saw this?
I stayed in, brought up speed. I was pulling a trailer myself. I was going to drop off to a home we own in northern Michigan, and I got to speed,
How fast was the speed?
to around 70, and by that time, he's now into the right lane, sort of hugging the shoulder. I couldn't make out the vehicle. It's still dark, and the sparks dominated my field of view. I mean, the attention was really drawn. It's, I got to get going here and get past this.
And why did you feel you had to get past it?
Just the sparks. I'm like everyone else, I think, and you see things on television where they're driving on rims at night. I'm thinking, oh, this is not safe. I need to get past them, and I sped up to around 78, 79 miles an hour.
Were you able to catch up with the vehicle at that
It
point?
was very, very slowly. I mean, if at all, I was very slowly making up the gap.
What lane did you drive in?
I stayed in the left lane, given all the sparks flying, and I didn't know if debris or something was going to let loose.
Were you still watching this vehicle as you were speeding up?
Yes.
Did it stay in the right lane at that point?
He was hugging the shoulder. We had went probably a mile, and he was hugging the shoulder. I call it really hard to the shoulder. I'm thinking, why isn't he getting off on the shoulder? Why isn't he pulling over? And at one point, sort of pulled off. It looked like the vehicle was pulling off onto the shoulder. I said, okay, he's getting off, and came back onto the expressway, and I saw a little bit of debris in the glare of the sparks. And that's when I said, this is crazy. I got to get past him. I sped up, and I tried calling 911.
Let me stop you there. You said the car guy that could you see it? Well, let me stop. Could you see the car at this point and make it out?
No, I couldn't, because just the sparks. Really, like I say, the sparks dominated your field of view and took my focus, so to speak.
But you said it began to go onto the shoulder?
Yeah, and I could tell because you could see the origin of the sparks, where they were going at, and when he came back on, I remember the words distinctly in my mind. This is crazy. I got to call 911.
Right. But you said at one point some debris came out of
Yes,
from the sparks.
that was right during that time. I could see it in the glare from the sparks.
Do you know what it was?
I would think a tire debris.
But you don't know.
I don't know for certain, no. It was speculation.
Did you attempt to call 911?
Yes.
And were you successful?
No.
Why not?
It said the number cannot be connected as dialed. And so I sped up into the low 80s, 82, 83, and was catching up at that point.
Did there come a point when you were able to make out the type of vehicle and what was going on?
It got to probably a couple miles up the road. I could now make out there was a trailer and a dark vehicle pulling the trailer, and it was probably another mile in that area. I mean, it seems like it took forever. I know it's not very long to go 4 miles, but that's when I could really start making out the trailer. He's dragging something, and it was parallel to the trailer and long, and
On the right side or left side of the
left side, on the side of the sparks.
trailer? Were you able to see the other side of the right side of the trailer at that point?
No.
And what did you do?
Well, I said, well, he's dragging his bumper or his whole fender, because you could tell it was long. And I see a silver blue in color, and wow, I can't believe he didn't pull over, but I just kept going at that high rate of speed, trying to get up and pass. And I would say I recall seeing the rest area sign, and looking back, looked over, and wow, what the heck? And I'm really catching up now. I don't know if he was slowing down to get in the exit or.
How fast are you going at this point?
I'm still going in the 80s, for sure. I want to get past. And as I'm really coming up, I look, and I could see black at the end, and it's bouncing all around, and I said, my God, he's pulling a person. And so, "Oh, John, don't let your mind play tricks on you." And looked at the road, and at that point, I'm near passing him now, and he's getting off into the rest area. So I said, "Okay, well, he's getting in the rest area. That was your mind playing tricks on you here," and I kept heading north.
Okay. You were finally able to pass that car?
Yes.
Were you able to see in the car?
No.
Do you know, do you drive that section of the freeway often?
Yes.
Do you know approximately how far it is from the entrance of I-75 and Dixie Highway to the rest stop?
About 4 miles. I've had children. Get on the highway, gotta go to the bathroom. You know,
Once you saw this car get off at the rest stop, did you slow down?
Yes, I went down to around 70, 72.
Why did you slow down at that point?
I was pulling a 1,000-pound trailer.
No more concerns?
No, he had gotten off at the rest stop.
Small bit.
Thank you, sir. I have no further questions.
Any cross-examination?
You bet. Mr. Fletcher, we haven't talked. Is that true?
That's true.
Have you ever heard of the phrase, a fish story? Ever heard that phrase before?
Absolutely.
Where as time continues, the telling of the size of the fish that one catches continues to grow?
I've heard of it often.
Isn't that what's happening with your account here?
Absolutely not.
You're sure of that?
Absolutely.
You'd state that?
I'm going to take that vision to my grave.
Mr. Fletcher, let me ask this question. On your oath,
Yes.
you would state that your story, your account of things, is not embellishing as you retell it time and time again.
Absolutely not. I've cried many times over this.
I'm not asking whether you cried. It's a tragedy.
It is a tragedy.
It's a tragedy for everybody who witnessed
I
it.
agree.
It's a tragedy for Trooper Wolf.
Your Honor, is there a question or is
These
this
are questions. It's a tragedy for everyone involved. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that for everyone. Yes.
Mr. Fletcher, what I want to do in order to make sure that we have an orderly exchange of questions and answers
Yes.
is it is important that you wait until I finish my question. Okay?
Yes.
The reason for that is that there's someone who later is going to actually type out what we talk about. Okay?
Yes.
In order for them to actually make an orderly transcript of our conversation, my question has to be finished before you give your answer. Okay?
Sure.
So let's start, Mr. Fletcher, if we could, with you enter onto the I-75, right?
Yes.
And as you enter onto I-75, what you testified to today was you see some object ahead on I-75, right?
I testify I saw sparks.
Sparks. Okay.
Yes.
And you were about a half mile away, yes? Okay. And what you told the prosecutor was that you thought you needed to get ahead of the object. You assumed it was a vehicle, it was on a rim, and it was dangerous, so you needed to get ahead of it, right?
That's correct.
Okay. A half mile, Mr. Fletcher, is 880 yards. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
That is almost 9 football fields. You aware of that?
Yes.
That means that
I'm sorry, can you ask that question again?
yes, that means 880 yards is almost 9 full football fields.
Yes.
That means that you felt it necessary 9 football fields back from the object with the sparks to speed up and attempt to pass an object that was 9 football fields ahead of you. Is that right?
That's correct. And stay in the left lane. Yes.
So 9 football fields was the distance that separated you from this vehicle, right?
An approximation.
Something that you told the court you felt, as you testified today, you felt was a danger of some sort, right?
Yes.
Yet you were 9 football fields away. Yes?
Yes.
And instead of staying back 9 football fields, what you did was you ventured closer to that object. Is that true?
That's true.
And you made a voluntary choice to get closer to that object, correct?
That's correct.
Made a voluntary choice to get closer to the object, not knowing who the driver was, right?
That's correct.
Not knowing the condition of the vehicle apart from the sparks, correct?
That's correct.
Not knowing whether the driver was intoxicated or impaired or anything of that sort, right?
That's correct.
And can we agree that you said you have children, right?
Yes.
And you sound like a smart business person. And you value your children and your business and your family? Yes?
Yes.
You value your health and your safety?
Yes.
And you wouldn't put your health and safety in harm's way knowingly, would you?
No.
Okay. So venturing, as you said, but you ventured closer to this object that was 9 football fields away, right?
Yes.
The reason why you ventured closer to the object that was 9 football fields away was that you truly didn't feel in danger.
That's not true.
Okay.
He was on the far right, and I think my own nature is, get past this. He's on the far right, I'm in the left. Get past this.
But if he's on the far right and you're on the far left,
Yes.
from your perspective, you felt that the distance originally was safe. 9 football fields feels pretty safe, doesn't it?
It had nothing to do with safety.
And the distance of the far right lane to the far left lane gave you comfort as well, correct?
I felt I could get past him.
You felt that being in the left lane of this vehicle, approaching where the vehicle was on the road, was a safe place for you to drive,
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you didn't feel like driving in the left lane, passing the vehicle, or trying to get up to it would put you in harm's way, true?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, as you're as you're driving along, first, would you agree that it was dark outside?
Yes.
It was very dark outside.
Well, it's late summer. It was dark.
Are you saying? I'm not sure I understand.
I
Are you qualifying whether it was dark outside?
Are you, I don't know what you want me to say here. You say very dark, I said it was dark out. I just don't know what you want me to say.
Well, there was no ambient lighting in the area, correct?
No.
I'm correct in saying that?
Well, initially, yes.
There was fog, wasn't there?
No.
Didn't you tell the police department in an interview that you had your fog lights on because there was fog?
I have my fog lights on the highway all the time.
Didn't you tell a police officer with
No,
whom you
that I'm
interviewed?
aware of, no.
Understand, Mr. Fletcher, but you got it, just for the record, to be
Yes.
clear, if he's asked, let him finish the question, even
Okay.
if you already know the answer.
Okay.
Just so, because everything needs to be typed
Sure.
ultimately.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you. So I'm sorry, Mr. Rock, I didn't get an answer.
Yes. Didn't you were actually interviewed by a state trooper, correct?
Yes.
And the state trooper who interviewed you was someone named, I think it was Trooper Rule, R-U-L-E, is that right?
I'm not sure what his name is.
And the trooper interviewed you on the same day as this tragedy, is that true?
That's correct.
He actually interviewed you, I believe it was up north, is that correct?
That's correct, in Sheboygan.
In Sheboygan. And when he interviewed you, things were still fresh in your mind, I assume, is that true?
Yes.
Give me 1 second here, Judge, if you would. Judge, I apologize, there's a spot in the interview that I'm looking for. Give me a second if you don't mind. I just want to make sure I understand a little bit about, so Trooper Rule asked you during your interview, did you have your headlights on? And your answer to him on the same date of this tragedy was, and fog lights, because there was some fog out there too. Was that your answer to Trooper Rule on the date of the incident?
I don't recall verbatim, but it sounds like very accurate.
Okay. And I don't mean to quarrel with you, Mr.
Yes.
Fletcher, but a moment ago when I asked you if there was fog, you said no.
Yeah, I just don't recall, a heavy fog or anything along in that line.
Well, I didn't ask you about a heavy
I
fog.
got it. I understand.
See, and what tends to happen in these situations is this event occurred in August of 2015, right?
Yes.
And of course it had an impact on you emotionally, as you've already shared with us, true?
Yes.
And when you first spoke with a trooper, in this case Trooper Rule up north, you had already seen the vehicle on the road, right?
Yes.
You had already received information from your wife, yes? Your wife had already shared with you that a police officer had been dragged, yes? And he was in critical condition, correct?
I didn't know his condition.
And that was and you pieced together that you had observed what you came to believe was a man being dragged by this vehicle and trailer, right?
That was my first impression when I was passing the trailer.
We're going to get to that in a second. But when your wife contacted you and told you that was now on your mind, right? Am I correct in saying
My wife
that?
called me and said, John, that I initially had really, when I passed this, he's driving a person, God, don't let your mind play tricks on you.
We're going to get there.
And then probably an hour later is when I found out that an officer had been hit on a motorcycle, and like I told her, I said, I must have seen him dragging part of the motorcycle or something. For all the sparks, my mind was playing tricks on me or something, and it was later that I found out that maybe it was then too that she said that the officer was dragged.
Mr. Fletcher, I appreciate that. Let's go back to my question if I could. After you made the observation on the road, which we'll get to, you received a phone call from your wife, correct?
Yes.
You had about a 4-hour drive up north, right?
Yes.
You're driving and your wife passes on information to you, true?
True.
Information that she clearly has gotten from the news, correct?
Yes.
You start to piece the information together, is that right?
Didn't need to piece it together.
Okay. You started to piece together the information that you got from your wife with what you had observed, correct?
Well, Your Honor, I think he answered that already. He said he didn't need to piece anything together.
It was
Okay.
something pieced
This is
together.
Peter's question.
Okay. Mr. Fletcher, that to me that's what I'm talking about. When you offer that answer here in court, aren't you offering that answer, isn't that sort of an embellishment on what you told the police when you originally were interviewed by Trooper Rule?
I don't understand what you're asking.
Well, didn't you tell Trooper Rule that after you received the information from your wife, that you then realized that a person had been dragged, and that is what you observed?
That is, yes, that
Okay.
would be correct. When my wife had called me, and yes.
Yes.
That's when I realized it was true. I saw a person.
Okay.
That my initial reaction was true.
Okay, we're going to get to that,
So,
okay?
yes.
You're in the car. It doesn't have to be this challenging. When you're in the car, you're driving, you get a phone call from your wife. Your wife tells you that, did you hear that a police officer had been dragged on I-75?
No, that's not. She called me and asked me if I had gotten through the Dixie Highway I-75 intersection okay. So, well, yeah, and the strangest thing happened.
Okay.
And-
Weren't you asked by Trooper Rule this question? You say, I was dragging you on maybe the motorcycle. Now I realize it was the officer. This was in your interview, Trooper Rule. Trooper Rule says to you, why would you realize that? And your answer, Mr. Fletcher, is because now I realize that. My wife just called me and said, John, this officer was dragged 2.5 miles. Isn't that what you told Trooper Rule during your interview?
Yes.
And your interview with Trooper Rule occurred hours after your observations on I-75.
That's correct, several hours, yes.
So when you're on I-75, and we'll get to what your original observations were, you're driving, you see this vehicle, which we'll talk about in a second. Later, as you're further along, as you get up to your ultimate destination, you get a phone call from your wife, correct?
7:30 in the morning.
Okay. And your wife passes on information, right? Yes?
Yes.
And it was when your wife passed on the information, as you told Trooper Rule, it was at that point that you realized that an officer had been dragged, correct?
That's when I realized it was.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. Let's go back to, would you agree that emotions can impact memories?
Yes.
And this is certainly an emotional event for you. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And when you interview with Trooper Rule, is it fair to say that from the start, what you were passing on to Trooper Rule, just as you have today, was essentially you were filling in blanks and gaps based upon information that had been given to you? Is that fair to say?
No.
That's not fair to say.
No. What I passed on to him was what I saw.
Okay. Let's see. Trooper Rule asked you at one point, you're talking, he says on page 5, yeah. And then you say, and I went by. I said, okay, he's at the rest area. I don't need to call 911 again. Then my wife called me a little bit after that, and I could tell you she called me at 7:36. He says, okay, and said, John, did you hear what happened? Are you past Waterford and stuff? I said, no, what? She goes, John, there's an officer was run over there, and they say it was on I-75. I said, oh my God, isn't that when you started to put things together? You started to piece things together based upon information from your wife?
Yes, and I called the state police.
Okay, I'm sorry?
And I called the state police.
I understand. And, in fact, in the very beginning of your interview with Trooper Rule, I believe that you were telling Trooper Rule that you were trying to piece things together. You were trying to put things together. Isn't that true?
I don't know where you're coming from on that.
Well, there's a difference between, would you agree?
All day, I
Mr.
would
Fletcher.
say to answer that
I'm
question.
going to interrupt.
Sure.
If you didn't, it sounds like you didn't understand the
I'll
question.
be happy to, I'll rephrase it. You took information, you made an observation on the road.
Yes.
You then receive information from your wife.
Yes.
You then receive more information.
Yes.
You then talk to Trooper Rule ultimately. And what you tell
That's what it
Trooper,
is.
what you tell Trooper Rule is that you are piecing things together. You are connecting the dots. Don't you agree with that?
I didn't tell him Trooper Rule that, I think is what you just said.
You didn't tell Trooper Rule that you were actually attempting to piece things together?
I probably discussed piecing it together at that point where, yes, everything came together. What I had saw and basically, yes, and putting it all together, yes, I would say that, but I don't think I ever used the term connecting the dots.
And I guess that's, and ultimately, like I said, the things that you shared with Trooper Rule and that you shared with us are all observations or memories that occur after you experienced the emotion of learning that what you observed was a man being dragged, right?
Yes,
And the impact that the emotions had on you, right?
yes.
And it's difficult to separate, almost impossible. Wouldn't you agree to separate? Let me finish. It's almost impossible to tell when your emotions and your sentiment are actually tainting your recollection. Isn't that fair to say?
I don't think in this case it's fair whatsoever. As I said, initially, right when I got up there, my first reaction was he's dragging a person. So no radio reports or phone calls or piecing together changed that. Was my initial what I thought I saw, and I didn't want to believe that that's what I saw. I couldn't have.
Not just that you didn't want to believe it. That's another exaggeration or embellishment, isn't it?
No,
What
that's
happened
not
is-
true.
What
I
happened
would
is,
object to argumentative.
okay.
Next question.
What happened, Mr. Fletcher, is that as you saw a gray and black object laying horizontally near the tire, correct?
Yes,
And it appeared flimsy to you, right?
yes,
And that what you told the officers were, as you said, the first thing that hit my mind was that's a body, right?
that's correct.
And then you immediately said to yourself, no, that's ridiculous, right?
That's right.
And you
Can't
said
be.
it's not reasonable to think that, right?
That's right. Nobody's dragging a person down I-75.
Right. Because it was ridiculous, it was so preposterous to think that could be taking place, correct?
That's correct.
And so you dismissed that at that point and felt that it was something from the trailer or another object that had fallen loose from the trailer, right?
No, I said initially I thought he was dragging his bumper or the rear quarter panel. Then when I got up there, when I said that's ridiculous and so there's no way, I just don't know what. I mean, it was at that point where, you just don't know what to think. Really, you don't know what to think.
Yeah, except that's not what we're talking about.
It is what we're talking
You have a
about.
vehicle on the road, you know that you're in the left lane, right?
That's correct.
The vehicle's in the right lane,
That's
correct? You have a vantage point to the vehicle where you're able to actually, you have a vantage point able to see the left side of the trailer, correct?
Yes.
Be able to see the rear of the vehicle, correct?
Yes.
Be able to see objects that are near the trailer, correct?
I could see what
You can
was
make them out, I
alongside there
understand.
because your focus is there.
And you
Sparks
had a
were
van-
still.
If I can object, I would just ask Mr. Rockhand, if he's going to ask the question, allow him to answer rather than just,
I think he's answering, so.
well, he's cutting off his answers, and if that's going to be the case, let him answer.
Through the whole.
Let's just take a deep breath.
Sure, no, I'm fine. So, Mr. Fletcher, let me finish my question, okay?
I didn't actually finish my
Okay.
statement. We gotta let everybody finish, same as we've gotta let Mr. Fletcher finish his answers. Make sure that, Mr. Fletcher, you allow him to finish his questions. So,
Yes.
slow it down
Now-
a little bit.
You know that drivers have blind spots, correct?
Yes.
And a driver has a blind spot, there are things behind them that the driver can't see, correct?
Yes.
And you know that in particular where there's a trailer, the trailer may also obscure or obstruct the driver's view of things, correct?
Depending on what type of trailer you're pulling.
And you know that if an object is closer to the ground, the actual vehicle itself, the chassis may impair or obstruct the driver's ability to see the object, correct?
Yes.
In this case, we know that there was a driver in the vehicle, right?
Yes.
And it turns out that there was a person that was on the ground, right? That was
Yes.
being dragged. You're in a different position than the driver in terms of vantage point, correct?
Yes.
Because you're actually on the road, right?
Yes.
You're to the left of the vehicle, correct?
Yes.
You have a vantage point where you aren't obstructed by the same blind spot, right?
That's
The
correct.
chassis of the vehicle that Mr. Warren is driving isn't blocking your vantage point, correct?
That's correct.
You're able to actually look and peer through a window and see your windows and see down to the ground, correct?
Yes.
And you know that as someone on the road, you're able to see things from your vantage point that perhaps the driver can't see, correct?
Yes.
And that puts you in a position to perhaps be aware of things that the driver of the vehicle may not be aware of, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so, in this case, what you observed, you would agree may not, and what you became aware of, may not be what the driver of the vehicle was aware of, true?
Objection, speculation, Your Honor.
That's fine.
Objections sustained.
Now, as you observe, as you observe the vehicle proceeding forward, I think you're watching it, you thought at some point that it might have been a muffler, right? The
No.
sparks?
No.
You never thought that it was a
Well, I
muffler?
mean, I really all along thought they were driving on a rim because the sparks were so dominant and there were so many and it was very bright.
My question was, at some point you thought that it was a muffler, correct?
I thought he was dragging something.
What you told Trooper Rule was, so my attention was on that, and I'm actually looking for road debris, thinking it's a muffler or something dragging, right?
Yes.
So at one point you thought that it was a muffler. Okay. Now, as the vehicle is moving forward, I think you would agree that at one point you thought to yourself, it should pull over to on the shoulder. You had to thought to yourself, why isn't the vehicle pulling over onto the shoulder,
Yes.
right? You said you drive a lot,
Yes.
correct? Travel on the roads a lot.
Yes.
Travel on highways a lot, right?
Yes.
We know that it was dark outside, correct?
Yes.
We already know from your testimony that there was some fog that morning, according to you, right?
Yes.
And you would agree to me that stopping on the side of, on a shoulder is potentially dangerous, correct?
Yes.
And particularly where the vehicle or trailer may end up sticking out into the roadway, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that you're aware that there are individuals who have actually been injured or killed trying to change tires or repair vehicles on the sides of roads, correct?
Absolutely.
And that a person who would have to change something or change a tire, which you originally thought it was, on the left side of this vehicle, would actually have to put themselves closer to the lanes of traffic, right?
Yes.
And that could put that person in harm's way, right?
Yes.
And you're aware of all of that when you
Yes.
observe the vehicle on the road that day,
Yes.
right? Now, what ended up happening is, as you're watching the vehicle, you're thinking, how come it's not pulling over on the shoulder? And then at some point, what you did is you see the rest area sign, correct?
Yes.
And the rest area was about 2 miles into your journey on I-75?
A few miles, 3 to 4 miles. So the rest area sign's before.
The rest area sign is about a mile before,
Yeah, so
correct?
probably 3 miles.
So the rest area sign is let's just say 3 miles. You see the vehicle, you say, why is he pulling over on the shoulder as you're traveling? You know shoulders can be dangerous,
Yes.
right? You're thinking to yourself, something's wrong, correct?
Yes.
And then you see the rest area sign, right?
Yes.
Now, tell the court, what thought, when you saw the rest area sign, what thought came to your mind?
It was right after I saw the rest area sign is when I could make out a little more that something was dragging to the left. It wasn't anything other than this. I can't reiterate enough. The sparks were so dominant. I think that really kept your focus other than, looking around, looking at the road. That's why I wasn't able to dial 911 correctly.
Mr. Fletcher, tell the judge
Yes.
what came to your mind, given the circumstances that I just laid out for you in my last
Right.
question, when you saw the rest area sign.
I don't know what my thought was, Your Honor. I was
Let me try to
more
refresh.
focused on
It's
looking
okay.
at what's now becoming visible.
Okay. Let me try to refresh your memory, okay? What you said to Trooper Rule was, on the left side of the trailer, this guy's not slowing down. I said, oh, and then I saw the sign. I said, okay, there's a rest area up here, because I travel it all the time, between mile marker 97 and 98. Was that true?
Yes.
And what you said to Trooper Rule was, so 97 and 98 between the mile markers is a rest area. I said, oh, he's just trying to get to the rest area.
And that could be very well, that statement was that day.
That's what you thought when you saw the rest area.
That does sound reasonable, yes.
Piece it together for me,
Yes.
just like I did.
Yes.
You know that shoulders can be dangerous.
Yes.
It's dark and foggy. Yes.
Yes.
And you know that people can be killed changing tires or repairing vehicles on the sides of roads,
Yes.
correct?
Absolutely.
You see a rest area sign, right?
Yes.
And you conclude to yourself, oh, the man is just trying to get to the rest area.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
In fact, you had, which we'll talk about, and then I think as you get near him, as you get near Mr. Warren's vehicle as he's pulling into the rest area, that's when you're able to make more of an observation about what was being dragged. Is that true?
Correct.
And as you pass by the vehicle, I said, okay, he's at the rest area. I don't need to call 911 again. Is that true?
Yes.
Now, can we agree, Mr. Fletcher, that where you believe that somebody needed emergency aid, you would call 911?
Yes.
An emergency aid could be a driver who has a vehicle that needs to be repaired or that needs help, right?
Yes.
You're also someone who, it sounds like, is going to go to lengths to protect the public and the drivers from people who are dangerous on the road. Is that right?
Yes, if possible.
And when you observed Mr. Warren, or you now know Mr. Warren, pull his vehicle into the rest area, you certainly could have, at that point, called 911, right?
I could have, yes.
Could have called 911 to say, there's a man that was driving very dangerously on the road, right? Correct?
I don't think at any point did I say he was driving dangerously,
That's
but
good, because he wasn't.
he was driving fast.
Sustained,
So-
like that last statement.
You didn't, when you called 911, you didn't say, I just observed a man exposing, that needs to be investigated for exposing others to harm on the road,
I
correct?
didn't get through to 911.
When you observed Mr. Warren pull into the rest area, you didn't at that point, still had time to, you could have called 911 again and made the phone call, couldn't you?
I could have called AAA too.
Right, and you didn't call 911 at that point to say, listen, there was a man on the road just driving for
Right.
4 or 5 miles, exposing a lot of us to harm. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
The reason why you didn't call 911 when you observed Mr. Warren pulling into the rest area was you at that point concluded to yourself that he was going to pull into the rest area, right?
Yes.
And that he was going to repair his vehicle, correct?
He was going to do what he had to do.
Do what he had to do.
Yes.
So the reason why you were calling 911 in the first place was to try to get him help.
I was calling because I didn't think it was right that someone's still going that rate of speed with all these sparks lighting up the area that would be a typical person's situation.
Mr. Fletcher, isn't that, doesn't your actions actually speak louder than your words on that point?
As far as what, trying to call 911?
Well, isn't that a point of embellishment and exaggeration by you on that point? I would draw that. So,
Mr. Rock, I was
Sure.
getting a note from the court reporter, and she's asking me to ask you to slow down.
sure. So I'll do the best I can. Amber's known me for a long time. I'll do the very best I can. So wouldn't you agree? I mean, the person was either warranted investigation due to his driving, or he didn't. There's no gray area there. Do you agree with that?
I believe that the reason I tried to call 911 was, and I stated this before, at one point started to go onto the shoulder to pull off, and then came back in, and at that point, I said, this is nuts, all these sparks and stuff, I'm going to call 911 and let the police know there's a vehicle out here, this is what's happening.
Okay. Again, my question still stands. You observed the driving. You observed the condition of the vehicle. The man either warranted calling 911 based on his conduct or he didn't.
Yeah,
Right.
I called 911 because I thought it was a dangerous situation,
And yet,
pure and simple.
after, when you see this person pulling into the rest area, you don't call 911 again to report him or to have him investigated or to see if he's drunk or anything of that sort, correct?
That's correct, they're off the highway.
Isn't it true, Mr. Fletcher, that the reason you're saying that now, you called because it was a dangerous situation, is because you are impacted emotionally by what you observed and what you now know?
No.
And that's why I go back to, again, don't your actions in not calling 911 and reporting the driver speak louder than your words?
No. I did try to call 911. As a matter of fact, the detective that met me in Sheboygan looked at my call log and
I understand that,
and verified, so
but you didn't do it after the man pulled into the
that's
rest
right, he was off the road.
Okay, that's your answer, that's your answer.
That's the answer.
So, let's, would you agree with me, I mean, you were, at one point, you were going above the speed limit, correct?
Absolutely.
And would you agree that you went above the speed limit, you made a judgment call to go above the speed limit, correct?
Yes.
And you felt at that point that that was reasonable?
Yes.
And you would agree that drivers make judgment calls like that all the time?
Absolutely.
Okay. And different people react differently to different situations, right?
Yes.
And you used what you thought was your best judgment?
Yes.
And you did what you thought was safest?
Yes.
Even though you were going at one point 12 or 13 miles over the speed limit?
Correct.
Okay. Can we agree that you knew nothing about Mr. Warren at that point?
And I still don't.
You knew nothing about how the vehicle was handling, right?
Yes.
Knew nothing about what he was thinking?
That's correct.
Knew nothing about whether he had encountered a similar problem in the past, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Knew nothing about whether he feared pulling the vehicle over on the side of the road, true? Nothing about whether he was trying to get to the rest area as fast as possible to get off the road, correct?
That's correct.
Your Honor, I guess I'm going to object to the entire line of questioning. Are we going to discuss what Mr. Warren was thinking? It's all speculation. And any questions to Mr. Fletcher about what he knows about the defendant's state of mind is all speculation.
Well, I was,
Most of these questions have been asked and answered.
the reason for the questions is that it's clear to you that whoever was driving that vehicle, in this case Mr. Warren, was making a judgment call as well, correct?
I'm going to object again, speculation.
Objection sustained, that would be speculation.
Okay.
Consider that for argument, Mr. Director.
One of the things that you've attempted to do is rely on your memory and the accuracy of your observations, is that right?
Yes.
Can we, you didn't see, when you passed by the vehicle, you didn't see any instrumentation panel inside, true?
That's true. I just, even that day I told the detective, I think when I got past him, I just said, okay, he's going in the rest area, that's it, but I don't recall seeing the instrument panel, though.
Is it fair to say that you didn't even recall whether the vehicle had headlights?
It was tail lights that I didn't recall. I didn't get in front of him to see headlights. The sparks were so dominant, that's what took your field. It just, when you see something bright like that, I think your focus is more on that. So I don't recall seeing his tail lights or anything, no. And by the time I was in front of him, he's in the rest area, so I don't know on his headlights.
But my question was, you don't even recall, you couldn't even tell the officer that the vehicle had headlights on when you spoke to Trooper Will,
I was
is that
never in
true?
front of him to see headlights. I think we're talking about two different things if we can.
No, I'm asking about your
The
reliability.
tail lights.
Couldn't tell how many people were in the car, right?
No, that's correct.
Couldn't tell whether the person was in the, whether it was a male or female,
Couldn't
right?
tell, that's correct.
At one point, did you tell Trooper Rule that the vehicle was driving mostly on the shoulder?
Probably, yeah, that's when he was trying to pull off. It looked like he was going to pull off, and that's when I say you could see some debris bounce up there was a lit up area from the sparks, and
Did you hear my question?
why he got back on, I don't know,
Did you hear my question? Did you hear my question?
Yes,
Okay.
and yes.
At one point, did you tell Trooper Rule that the vehicle was actually operating, for the most part, on the shoulder?
Yes,
That's not true, correct?
it is true. It looked like he was pulling off onto the shoulder.
Okay.
And for sure, at one point, it looked like he was going to get off on the shoulder.
Mr. Fletcher?
And that's when he got back on. so.
Are you aware that you're the only witness that puts Mr. Warren's speed at that level?
Object, Your Honor.
I withdraw that.
Objection sustained.
You said that you observed like tire debris actually coming onto the roadway, correct?
Yes,
You read that the police actually closed down the highway and canvassed that?
I didn't know that.
That they actually searched the highway?
Yeah, I didn't know
Do you
that.
know that there was no
I'm
tire
gonna
debris
object, Your
found of
Honor.
that sort?
Know nothing about
We're,
that.
one, we're assuming facts, not evidence, and two, he's asking to comment on any other witnesses.
The reason for the line of questioning?
I
Mr.
withdraw it.
Humphrey?
I
All right,
withdraw it
thank
again.
you.
My last comment is that you said that there were no other, you were the only vehicle that was near Mr. Warren's vehicle. Is that true?
Behind him. I believe when I got on, there was a car farther up.
Ahead of Mr. Warren?
Yes.
There was no other vehicle between you and him, is that right?
No, there wasn't.
And that is from the point that you were behind Mr. Warren up until the point that you passed him, correct?
Yes.
All right, I have nothing else, thank you.
All right, thank you. You can redirect. You're almost done, Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you.
Just a couple. Mr. Rock, I asked you quite a few times about you not calling 911 after the car got off the rest stop, correct?
Correct.
Was that because the danger had passed in your mind?
Yes.
But prior to seeing that, you felt he was a danger to everybody else on the road?
I thought there was a hazardous situation, yes.
In fact, it was such a hazard that you felt the need to try to call 911?
Absolutely. And that was just after he had went onto the shoulder and then got back off the shoulder back. He was hugging it, is the term I would use, hugging the shoulder. And at that point, I said, no, this is crazy. I'm going to call 911 and report this.
Now, you also, Mr. Rock had asked you about piecing it together. He asked you a lot of questions about that.
Yes.
When you said piece it together, because you were told it was an officer who was dragged, did that change your mind that you actually saw a body earlier?
It basically confirmed what I really didn't want to believe that I saw. I mean, it was confirmation. As soon as, when she called me and told me about that, I said, I've got to call the police and let them know that what I saw. And at that time, I called 411 instead of 911, asked to be connected to the state police. They connected me to the Brighton field office, and I told the officer what I had seen. I thought it was a mid-size, dark vehicle pulling the trailer. He got off in this rest area, thinking that if an officer had been, that he would want to know where that's at. He took my information, and I didn't hear anything for a couple of hours. And then I think she was a colonel, maybe from the state police, called me back.
And then you met with the trooper, Sergeant Rule up in
Yes, in Sheboygan.
Now, Mr. Rock had asked you about making a judgment call going 12 to 13 miles an hour over the speed limit, correct?
Correct.
And what was that in response to? I mean, why did you feel the need to go that?
I just I realized this person wasn't going to slow down, stop. I just wanted to get past it. The same situation. I think, you're a person, and it's judgment call. So yes, that's.
In response to the actions of another?
I don't know if it's per the other person's actions or as to the situation. I would say is a fair statement. Situation that's with all the sparks. It was just. It was something.
If this car with the sparks going, would you have driven 12 to 13 miles an hour faster?
If you
didn't see the car, that car was not around.
No.
Objection sustained.
Yeah.
Well, Your Honor, it's in response to Mr. Rockine's questions on cross about, well, you made a judgment call to go faster based on your driving conditions. I'm asking him to clarify that. Why did he make that judgment? In response to Mr. Rockine's cross-examination question.
No.
That's why I'm asking it.
He said,
I'm still going to,
you.
it's still speculation, so we can speculate all day.
You're right, Your Honor.
So we're going to get past the speculation. I want to hear what his thoughts actually were.
Now, you said you observed at least one other car on the road ahead of him?
Yes, it was up there, pretty good ways in front, but I did see it, yes. And then I think my focus just turn to the sparks, the illumination was pretty intense.
Was traffic heavy on northbound that time of the morning?
No, southbound is, but no, northbound was very light.
Thank you, I have no further questions.
Mr. Fletcher, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
You may be excused. I'm going to ask that you just push the front gate forward.
Yes.
Is there any reason Mr. Fletcher cannot be excused at this time?
I have no further questions.
All right,
Thank
then you are
you.
free to leave. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Judge, we've agreed to allow me to call David Poole out of turn to get the civilian witness on the witness stand. Is that okay?
Very good.
Can I get him from the hall?
Yes, you may. This is a defense witness.
Mr. Hudson, could you spell Trooper Rule's last name?
R-U-L-E.
We'll take the witness chair there, if you would.
Good morning, sir. Prior to taking the stand, can I have you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give this court is the whole truth?
Yes.
I think you have seen the witness stand. Watch yourself.
Mr. Poole, it's sort of protocol for us to ask you to give us your first and last name and spell both, please, okay?
David Poole, D-A-V-I-D, P-O-O-L-E.
Okay. We're going to attempt to go back to August 28th of 2015, okay?
Okay.
I don't know if that date stands out in your mind, but there may be some events that do, okay? And when I ask questions, it's important for you just to answer verbally.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I think I'm going to interrupt. I just want to make a statement. I recognize Mr. Poole. I believe if the question's going to be asked, you either worked for Independence Township. Is that correct?
I did prior to,
And there's been times when you've actually testified in court on matters. Is that correct?
correct.
Okay, so I recognize him. I don't know him, but I do recognize that he has appeared in this court before. But I want to just make that statement.
I
I
appreciate
haven't
that.
seen him, and it's probably been
2012 is when I left the
It's been
township.
So you look at that
5 or
memory.
6 years, but I recognize Mr. Poole's face, so.
Very good.
But I don't see any problem going forward with the
Thank you, Judge.
witness, but I just want to indicate that I did recognize him.
On August 28, 2015, at some point did you end up on I-75?
Yes.
What kind of vehicle were you driving?
A Chevy Equinox.
And where were you headed?
I was heading north to Lansing.
Not a Spartan, are you?
No.
Okay. So you got on I-75 near Sasha Road,
Correct.
and as you're driving along, at some point something caught your attention. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
What was the first thing that caught your attention?
Burning rubber smell?
And did you know where it was coming from?
I did not.
Did you continue moving northbound on I-75?
Yes.
Did you have, did the smell continue to increase or decrease or go away?
I would say it probably stayed the same.
About stayed the same? At some point as you're driving, do you notice a vehicle or pulling a trailer ahead?
Yes.
What lane are you in?
I was in the middle center lane,
What lane is the other vehicle in?
the right lane.
And just to be clear, at this point on I-75, there are 3 lanes.
Correct.
So there's what we call the fast lane and the left lane, correct?
Yes.
And there's the middle lane, the one that you were in, and there's the right lane.
Yes.
Now, as you're driving, do you see the vehicle in the trailer?
Yes. Eventually, yes.
And at some point, are you approaching a rest area?
Eventually, yes.
Okay. So, tell me, at one point, did you think to yourself, make any thoughts to yourself about the vehicle pulling over?
What I was thinking was that the trailer probably had blown out a tire.
Okay. And did you think to yourself at any point about the vehicle or the driver pulling over or finding a safe place to pull over?
I did.
And what was that thought?
Well, the thought that was going through my mind was that the trailer probably had blown a tire, and that the cargo that was in the trailer was between the car and the trailer.
Okay. What were your thoughts about the vehicle pulling over?
Just as I was approaching the rest area, the sparks really kind of got going, and I remember kind of honking and kind of going like that, like you need to pull over.
And did you think anything about the rest area as a safe place for him to pull over?
I did.
What did you think about that?
Again, because I was thinking that they had blown out a tire, at that point I thought at least they're getting off at the rest area.
You did talk to a police officer on August 28th, is that fair to say?
Yes.
And make sure I have and when you spoke to a police officer, let me see, do you remember saying to a police officer that you at one point thought, why isn't he pulling over?
Yes.
And then you said, but then I kind of thought, well, he's probably the safest place for him to get over with a blown out tire is at the rest area.
I do remember thinking that, yes.
Was that true?
Yes, I do remember.
That was a true thought?
Yep.
You were behind the vehicle pulling the trailer on the road, correct?
At one point, yes.
But obviously, at some point, did you pass it?
Yes, as the vehicle is exiting the expressway, going to the rest area.
So we're at some point, did you see another large sort of pickup truck on the road?
Well, Your Honor, I guess I'm object to leading. He can ask him what he saw, but to suggest that to him, what did you see, by saying, did you see this, did you see that, that's leading, Your Honor. I'd have to be asking him, what did he see, not put it into his head what he may have or may have not
Those
seen.
don't suggest an answer. They call for that he could say yes or no, and then I can ask him to
That would
explain.
be a leading question.
Okay.
So,
Did you see any other vehicles on the road besides the vehicle pulling the trailer?
I remember there were other vehicles on the road, but specifics of the other vehicles I don't recall.
Do you have any memory, or do you remember? Let me see if I can refresh your memory. At some point, did you tell trooper or a police officer that you spoke to about this incident that you observed a larger vehicle, or like a Silverado, speed up and pass by you?
I don't remember specifically being, maybe a pickup truck in the left lane going past me.
Going past
Or
you?
going with traffic with the same time I was, all kind of occurring at the same time.
Right, so let's put that picture together. The vehicle with the trailer, with the sparks, is on the right near the rest area, right?
Yes,
You're in the
correct.
center lane, correct?
Correct.
And there's a Silverado or a large truck that's in the left lane, correct?
Correct.
And that one is the fastest truck, the fastest vehicle,
It was going faster than me, yes.
and faster than was it going faster than the vehicle that was pulling the trailer?
Yes.
Okay. In fact, let me see if I can, is your memory foggy on this at all?
Foggy? No, I wouldn't say it's foggy.
Okay. Because if you want to, I can refresh your memory with things that you told the police that day. If it helps you, or if you need it, just let me know.
Okay.
Let's talk, what kind of car were you driving that day?
Chevy Equinox?
And was that a company car?
Correct.
And I assume that you have some sort of obligation in driving a company car to drive it safely?
As anybody has the obligation to drive safely, sure.
And about how fast were you going when you got onto I-75 in your company vehicle?
I'm sure I was doing right around the speed limit, 70 miles an hour or so.
At some point, now, you're doing about 70 miles an hour, correct?
Sure, yes,
And the vehicle with the trailer is ahead of you.
yes,
And you obviously catch up to the vehicle in the trailer.
yes.
And that means that if you're going 70 miles an hour and you catch up to him, that means that he's going less than 70 miles an hour.
Sure.
As you're in the center lane approaching the vehicle pulling the trailer in the right lane, I want to talk a little bit about the way that the driver is handling pulling the trailer, okay?
Okay.
Is the vehicle being driven in the right lane?
It seemed to be, yes. It was dark.
Did you observe swerving or weaving?
Not that I recall, no.
Did you observe him drive onto the shoulder for any prolonged period of time?
Not that I recall, no.
Did he pull into your lane?
No.
Did he approach your car in your lane?
No.
From your perspective, being a driver, did the vehicle seem to be under control?
I'm going to object to speculation.
I'm asking from his perspective.
Well, that's, again, we're asking for his opinion, and it's my understanding, based on, of course, previous rulings, his opinion,
I think
as
a
to the other.
layperson can answer that question.
Did the vehicle seem like it was under control?
Yes.
Could you see into the vehicle at all?
No.
Do you know if it was a male or a female that was driving?
No.
When you looked into the rest area, did you see any danger in the rest area?
I didn't really look into the rest area.
Do you see any vehicles in the rest area that you can remember?
No.
Do you see anybody walking about that could have been in danger or in danger of being struck by the vehicle?
Well, here, and I'm going to object, he said he didn't look into the rest
Okay,
area.
fair enough,
Objection sustained.
fair enough. Can I have a second try?
Sure.
And nothing else, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Poole.
Nothing. Cross-examination.
Just a couple questions. Mr. Poole, when you first saw this car, in fact, you told Detective Sergeant Peckman, it was probably 1 to 2 miles ahead of you, right?
Yes.
Okay. And it took you all the way to the rest stop to catch up.
Pretty close to it, yes.
And I think you told him you were doing between 70 and 75 miles an hour?
That could be, yes.
So you could have been going a little faster than the speed limit as well, correct?
Sure. Yes.
But it did take you almost 4 miles to catch the car, correct?
Mileage-wise, I could say somewhere between the "Are you on the right road?"
Right.
Dixie Baptist sign and the rest area.
Okay. But when you first noticed it, it was a couple miles ahead of you, right?
I would say yes.
Thank you, nothing further.
All right, thank you. Any regrets?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Poole, no one's trying to call you out for going fast. I hope you realize that, okay? I want to frame the issue so that I can ask you the right question. When you got onto the highway, at some point if you were going 70 or 75, it doesn't matter. Let's say it's in that range. That's what you told Mr. Hudson, okay?
Yes. Yes.
It's in that range. Regardless of whether it's a mile or 2 miles, you ultimately do catch up to the vehicle pulling the trailer, right?
Ultimately, yes.
Yes. Which means that, just common sense, that you're going faster than that vehicle and trailer, right? In order for you to catch it. That's just common sense and logic, right?
Well, again, I'm going to object to leading.
Okay. Is it?
Yeah, I would say logic dictates yes, that if I catch up to a vehicle, I'm going faster.
You were asked, I asked you about this other truck that was in the left lane. Remember that?
Do I remember you asking me?
Yes.
Yes.
And do you remember telling Sergeant Peckman that truck was speeding or going faster than your vehicle and the
I'm
other
going to object
vehicle?
outside the scope of redirect.
That's fine. It doesn't matter.
Or, I'm sorry, of cross.
It doesn't
I'm
matter.
used to
It's
the-
fine. I have nothing else. Thank you.
Sustained. All right. Mr. Poole, thank you for your testimony. You may step down, just push that front gate forward. Is there any objection to Mr. Poole being excused?
No, thank you.
All right, Mr. Poole, thank you for your testimony. You are
Thank you.
excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Are there additional witnesses?
Sergeant Lidstrom is next, Your Honor.
All right, why don't we take about a 5-minute break? You can stretch your legs for just a minute. All rise.